Welcome to Happier ADHD. My name's Marley Darling. I'm a second generation neurodiversity expert with over 17 years experience, and now I'm raising my own neurodiverse kids. You'll notice that I call the podcast a few different things, but we always explore these same topics that I've been looking at for the last 17 years. Psychology, mindset, neurodiversity, personal development, health and well-being, business, parenting, and more. So, without further ado, let's jump in. Hi and welcome back to the podcast. My name's Marley Darling. I'm a full-time solo homeschooling mum of 2 kids, and all 3 of us have ADHD and are on the autism spectrum. And I've been studying neurodiversity, psychology, behavior, habits, personal development, neuroscience, and entrepreneurship for the last 17 years. And I'm here to bring you all my lessons, all my accumulated knowledge from all that studying and experimenting, as well as my life experiences as they happen and how we can translate them into lessons to have an empowering and positive experience of this beautiful life while having some neurodiversities on board. So it's been, I think, about 10 days since I've recorded an episode, and the reason for that is I was in the luteal phase of my menstrual cycle and low energy and busy, and I just didn't do it. So I've got quite a bit to fill you in on. What's been on my mind? Originally, after the last episode, the first week that I need to fill you in on, what was most on my mind was tech use and how to balance it. And that has evolved into a routine overhaul and how to get back into a rhythm and routine that works for us, because I feel like we've been out of routine for about a year at least, and that's understandable because we went through a major life change last year and some shock and some grief. So that's completely understandable, but having a wishy-washy routine where the evening routine is like hours of reading and I don't know when the kids will switch task to come to the table, and it's all just a bit of a struggle, a bit of an unknown, and then they're staying up late and I don't get rest time. That's not working. That was not working, but I've made progress. So not only has it been on my mind, but I have even more things to update you on. So let's get right on through to the breakthrough segment. And that breakthrough is that it's working. So I had a conversation with my kids and I said, look, there's going to be a few changes. We need to do things a bit differently. And I had a good big think about how I wanted things to work. I knew at first that I wanted to cut back on tech use because we went away for 4 days and the kids were happy and it was easy. And as soon as we were driving back home, they started talking about all the tech they wanted to do. And tech was just such a focus and so on their mind. And I've tried a bunch of different strategies, but, look, I'm still not entirely sure what to do because there's so many different things they want to fit into their schedule. There's so many different games and consoles they like to play, and that part is challenging. So at the moment I'm thinking of having like one flexible day a week where they can indulge. Obviously this depends on your life situation completely if you want to implement a similar thing, but for me I find it really hard when they're playing games that don't have a definite end point, because then they don't want to stop. I know what it's like to be a kid and your parents are telling you to get off, but you are in a spot where you can't save the game, and I don't want to be that mum who forces them to turn it off without saving, but I also don't know when I'm being taken advantage of. So I'm still not sure around that side of things, like playing Pokemon on the Switch, for example. But I do want them to have downtime and I do want them to have some tech so that need is met. And at the moment, what we're doing is implementing an after school time. And this has been excellent for me as well, because it's just been summertime where in the first month of autumn, and summer can be really go, 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 because we live near the beach. So even at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we might decide, hey, it's a beautiful day, it's sunny, let's make the most of life, let's go and do things. There's lots of things to do in the evening. It stays light where I am until 9 o'clock in the middle of summer. And it's quite nice that it's autumn and we can slow down a little bit and have a bit less of that feeling. And what we're doing is, if it's 3 o'clock, that's after school time. And that might mean that we're out doing a walk on the beach still, or we might stay longer at our homeschool co-op. We might not get home exactly on 3, so there's no promises there. But 3 o'clock is when we clock off. I'm not the teacher anymore. We're not going to be out doing enriching activities or homeschool groups or doing any schoolwork. That's just leisure time. Until 5 o'clock, I expect the table to be cleared and set at 5 o'clock. Now, this is very ambitious, and I am helping it out a lot and making sure there's not too much on the table, but I'm trying to get them to help out and just reinforcing, this is your job. Even if I'm doing it, I'm saying, look guys, we're clearing the table because we're about to have dinner and the table needs to be cleared, and this is your job. So I think with repetition and routine, this should sink in a little bit. So then we've got dinner time. The biggest breakthrough of all is not having reading at the table. And this is a huge shift, and it's going to take a lot of working on because it's such an ingrained behavior. It's something that's been happening for the last 8 years. And I was surprised and very interested when we spoke to a doctor about ADHD, and he asked if my kids read at the dinner table. And I didn't know it was a thing. I struggled with it for so long. I tried to change it for so long, and then eventually I gave in. But that's what my kids do. And I get it. It's hard for kids to stay at the table, especially when they take a long time to eat. It does get boring. It gets boring for me eventually too. But there are other strategies and techniques that I'm implementing for that, and that may be listening to a podcast. Sometimes in the middle of winter, we watch TED-Ed YouTube videos during dinner as a bit of a treat, but I prefer it to be something that we're interacting with each other and kind of practicing connecting and practicing social skills. And so at the moment, we've been asking trivia questions. We've got the little cards out of the Trivial Pursuit box, or last night when they didn't want to do that, we looked up some Pokemon trivia. And it's a really good tool because in the past we've used conversation cards, and we have a bunch of conversation cards that we can choose from as well. But that works for one child and the other child still likes to read at the same time. So trivia is really cool because we're learning stuff, we're thinking with our brains, and it also does spark some conversations as well. And we had one dinner so far where there were no books at the table. Last night I allowed books at the table because the routine was a bit mucked up. We were behind, so we just read. It's fine. But overall, we're moving towards having that routine in the evening. And then after dinner, if there's time, there'll be a board game. And that's a really good way to connect as well and really fill their cup. And I notice the difference as well because connection inspires cooperation. And when my kids just have their heads in their books, it can have a similar effect to if a kid's using a video game. They're off in another world, they're disconnected, it's hard to switch tasks, they don't notice how much time is passing. And it's just really lovely to be able to connect. It's fun to play board games. It's really good for our brains. It's good for us. It's fun. Oh, I already said fun. It's double the fun. And also, because I have their attention at the table, they're not off bouncing around the house. They're not starting other games or activities in the evening, which can be really tiring. They're not making a mess. And then it's easier to task switch because I already have their attention. At 6:30 or 7, it's time to go and get ready for bed and do their teeth, and they can use the Pokemon app, and then they can read for a bit in bed, And then there's a specific time that's bedtime, and I'm actually implementing it. And I used to be really good with implementing the routines, and then I didn't get lazy. I had to adapt and change things and relax a bit, because it can be hard to be in that role of implementing things. But then one day I realized that it's actually harder for me to sit in limbo between relaxing and parenting and waiting for them to go to sleep until late at night. It's emotionally draining, so it's best to be up and be a little bit forceful and effortful and having my kids cooperate. As much effort as it is, it pays off. It is like training a pet because of that neurological wiring, not in a way that I'm equating children to pets, just the way the brain works. It is training. Creating habits is training the brain. So that's been a massive breakthrough. It's been really good. It's nice to have some space and energy for myself as well. So the biggest struggle has been trying to figure out what my plan is with that and implementing it. But as I've said, we've got to the breakthrough stage with that already, and it's about being persistent. I've also wanted to implement, going into the little hack section of the podcast, the crowd it out method. Rather than focusing on what I don't want to happen, I'm crowding it out with things that I do want to happen. So reading at the table, it's hard to not do something. To tell a kid, don't read. I'm crowding it out with trivia or with other activities. And then there's no space for reading, and there's not as much focus on the not doing the reading because there's stuff that is happening. The same as playing board games after dinner. Taking up more space and more time doing these other activities means less reading. And I love for my kids to read, but to sit around reading all day is a bit much. It's lovely to read for half an hour or 2 hours a day, but honestly, I don't know how many hours they would read for sometimes, and I want to have them engaging in the world and having a variety of different things happening. It's the same thing with eating. If you want to eat less unhealthy things, fill yourself up on healthy snacks. Whatever it is you want to do less of, crowd it out with more of what you want to replace it with. I'm trying to implement this as well with my kids, copying some silly books they've read that call each other dummy and dum-dum. And instead of saying, no, don't say that, I'm just going to repeat to them, oh, I think what you're saying is that I'm a genius. Or just repeat and say, well, I think you're amazing and special, and use that as a trigger for myself to compliment them. Or to say a positive affirmation about myself and do some good role modeling. Rather than focus on the negative. Another little tip is to ignore the behavior you don't want reinforced and give a lot of attention to the behavior you do want reinforced. There's a reason kids behave the way that they do. And I'm not sure if my kids are attention seeking or if they're bucket dipping, which means they don't feel good about themselves, so they're trying to, take energy from other people or hurt other people a little bit. Whatever the reason, it's not very effective for me to just say, don't do that, because then all the attention and the reinforcement is on the negative thing of calling people names. So I'm going to crowd it out and be silly about it. In the car, they were arguing and one of them said, oh, don't punch me. And, my sister punched me. And usually I say, okay, we don't punch each other. And they kind of go on about it a bit. And it's not very effective to just say that's not how we behave, even though that is a strategy. But as well as stating the expectation and the boundary, it's important to reinforce positive behavior at other times and also in the moment to distract from it. So I said, okay, we don't punch each other. Let's play a game. This idea just came to my head. I said, let's play a game. It's called Punch or Not Punch. And I'm going to say a thing and you have to say if I can punch it. And at first they weren't very, I don't know, they were a bit quiet, a little bit skeptical. And I said, look, can I punch a car? And they said, no. And I said, can I punch a tree? And my youngest one said, yes, you can. I said, okay, you might hurt your hand. And then we went on to suggest all kinds of things. I said, could you punch a giant marshmallow? They said, yes, we could punch that. Could you punch a giant jelly bean? Yes. I said, okay, well, it might be a bit thick at that size. I'm not sure. And we just came up with various examples. And then it was actually quite fun because we had to theorize, well, what would this thing be like to punch? Would it be safe for us? Would it be safe for that other thing? How would it feel? What would it be like if it was giant? What would it be like if it was tiny? I asked if you could punch a pile of leaves, and one said yes and the other said no because you don't know what's under the leaves. So it was just a really great distraction. We just ended up playing this fun, silly game, and it was also reinforcing, well, what things do we punch? What things don't we punch? Okay, we don't punch animals. Could we punch Pokemon? Probably shouldn't do that either. And they knew what was appropriate and what was inappropriate. They know that it's not okay to punch other people. And I pointed at a jogger. I said, do we punch that jogger? And they said, no, why would we do that? And I said, what about a bad guy? And that was a bit of discussion as well, because what if the bad guy's not doing anything to you and just walking down the street, but you know they're a bad guy, versus what if a bad guy's doing something to you? So it was an interesting vehicle to explore these kinds of questions. And the other game I really love to play, speaking of games that help explore questions, is Would You Rather, because you can use Would You Rather as a tool to find out things about your child, such as would you rather broccoli or cauliflower? And whichever one they like the most out of those two, you can see if you can put them on their dinner plate. As well as activities and favourite things to read, or sneakily asking about birthday presents. You could ask them, oh, would you prefer this or that, in the form of this game. Or even you could use this for social skills, like would you prefer or would you rather someone does this or that? How would you want to be treated? So that's a fun little game, and that's a hack for you to crowd things out and to use some distraction to reinforce positive behaviour and move away from not so positive behaviour. And that was a bit of a story for you as well. So I guess let's move in to a life check-in. In health, I'm feeling pretty good. It was low energy there for a little while, and I didn't exercise for almost 2 weeks. And then I realized, you know what? If I'm low energy, I probably need to start moving my body. It's probably not that I need more rest at this point. At this point, it's probably that I need to get that lymph fluid flowing through the body. I need to get the energy happening and kickstart it through exercise. So I did that 2 days ago, and I did it again today, and it wasn't as hard as I thought. I thought, oh, I'm too tired to do this, but as I got into it, I was actually surprised what my body can achieve. So I was really happy to get back into that exercise, and I really encourage you with anything that you want to do, whether it be doing some exercise or sitting down to write a book or do some art or go outside or try a new hobby. Don't just think about it in your brain, because then you are seeing how you feel about the concept of it. You don't know how you feel about the actual thing until you are in it. So sit down at your laptop and write for 10 minutes and see if the flow comes to you. Start moving your body and exercising. If you're still exhausted after 5-10 minutes, then you can stop. But start the thing and see how you feel in the thing, not the concept of the thing. I'm also really excited in health because my kids are eating veggies. A great tool is the dinner winner plates, and it's like a little board game where they have to eat. There's sections on the plate. It's a plastic plate, and they have to eat whatever's in each section, and when they get to the end, there's a little hidden treat. and my kids are eating off those again. And so they're eating a pretty decent range of salad and vegetables in the evening, and I'm really, really happy about that. And for myself, I baked some muffins yesterday, and I am so happy to be baking again and to have some snacks on the go that we've made and something tasty to eat. So that's been really, really lovely. I feel like I haven't baked in a long time. I just haven't had the emotional space. And it was a lovely day that day of baking and doing some things around the house. And I'm not sure why I got to that particular mood, but just the baking the cupcakes and the getting the kids into routine felt really positive and really good. And this afternoon thing of having an after school time for me is excellent as well, because I'm telling myself everything else can go on pause. If the kids are resting, I can rest. You know how when you've got a baby, they say sleep when the baby sleeps? I think when you've got kids, you should rest when your kids are resting. Too many people do housework when the kids are resting. And I get it. I do that as well. When my kids are calm, I do the housework because you don't want to have them being chaotic somewhere and need supervision when you are off vacuuming the house or something. But after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going to sit down and get some rest before I cook dinner. And tonight, it's 4 o'clock at the moment. I prepped dinner first, and now I'm recording this, which is kind of a rest, and then I'll sit down and read while dinner's in the oven. And I think we're going to go for a walk, actually, just because we didn't earlier, and I did have a rest earlier. So there are exceptions sometimes, but I'm really enjoying going into autumn and having this afternoon rest and having a read and a cup of tea, and I can fit in 20 minutes of rest and it will recharge me for the rest of the day. So I'm really enjoying that. In social stuff, it was so beautiful where we went. We went away to somewhere where there was no electricity, no internet, but there were cabins, and we had several different families staying. And at the crack of dawn, well, not the crack of dawn, whenever you wake up, which we woke up around 8:30, friends were just nearby. So we could go outside, see who's awake and playing already, and visit each other in their cabins. And we played board games, and the kids played. And it was like from 8:30 in the morning till 10:30 at night, the kids could play with their friends and explore through the bush and make up games. And there was not a moment of boredom, because anytime you were bored, whether child or adult, you could wander around and find a friend and have a chat or play a board game or eat a snack. And we went for bushwalks and things like that as well. But it was really beautiful to experience community and what it might be like living in an intentional community, and what it's like when kids come together with other children. So we had ages 7 to 14, and the change over the 4 days, by the end of it, they were all playing cohesively. And they were having dance parties and dance battles, and they were making up elaborate role-playing games, and the older ones were teaching the younger ones D&D, and there were new friendships formed and unlikely friendships formed. And it was just beautiful to see that, and as well what it's like to be an adult when there's a group of children, there are about 10, 12 kids, entertaining each other, a bunch of parents around to help and support with anything that's needed. We didn't cook communally, but we could spend time communally. We had, some people would chop the wood and then offer it to the others. And someone might make a cup of tea and offer everyone tea. And some people were cooking snacks for other people's kids, or I made hot chocolate for a bunch of the kids. And sometimes in our cabin there would be a bunch of kids playing board games, or I especially loved in the morning where a few friends would just come over and visit, and sometimes they'd bring their cereal while my kids were eating cereal, and they'd sit and just read in silence, eating their cereal together. And it was just beautiful and super interesting. And then a bit of a shock to come home and just not have that community and be within four walls and not have this beautiful natural space outside, and see how much kids gravitate towards tech when they don't have their friends around, and how different it was and how easy it was there, and then it was suddenly hard at home because there wasn't that community around. So that was super interesting. In parenting, everything about parenting is what I explained earlier about getting back into routines. House, I don't know if I have any interesting things to say about house and housework at the moment. I've finally learnt to water my plants. I had grand plans for having automatic watering tubes in there. I never got them set up. I had a timer on and a sprinkler, and then something about that broke and it never got put back in properly. And I realised that I can actually just, do you know what? I think I've actually left the hose on, but I realised that I can turn on the hose and it can spray directly in the garden, and then a few minutes later I can put it in the other garden, and then I can turn it off. There's only 2 garden beds I need to water at the moment. But it's definitely best I do that between tasks outside, so I remember to turn it off, because I do think I've left it on. I'll have to go and check that after this. But it's a method that mostly works. The garden's getting watered more often than otherwise. It might be a little bit overwatered right now, but it's fine. So that's how house is going. With productivity, with productivity, I have a new favorite app for the phone. It's called Minimalist Phone. I love it. I've mentioned quite a few apps on this podcast for you to reduce your social media use or have more conscious phone use. This is my favorite one. This has, as your home screen, you have a black screen, and it has a clock, and it has phone, it has camera down the bottom, and then you can have favorite apps, but all the apps are just written as words in a list. And I wasn't sure if this would be difficult, but I actually love it. The free version only allows you to favorite 3 apps. So my favorite 3 apps are my food tracking app, my habit tracking app, and my podcasts. So if I'm bored and open my phone with something to do, those are the things that look me in the face, and I'm reminded that, okay, those are the things I use my phone for, as well as the phone and the camera down the bottom. And when you click on the clock, you can set up alarms. When you swipe across to the right, there's a list of all the apps. So if I want an app, I swipe across and then I just type in, or you can scroll down and search for the app. So I'm intentionally going to a particular app, rather than opening my phone, seeing all that color, getting all that dopamine into the subconscious without even realizing that that's what I'm doing, and kind of looking for something to do or clicking between apps. That doesn't happen. I love this app. I highly recommend it. I might buy the full version at some point if I find it's necessary, but the free version does pretty damn well. And yeah, absolutely love it. Also, I played around with AI for the first time this week, and I'm loving it. It's answered a bunch of questions for me that I wasn't able to find properly on Google and other search engines, I guess. Sorry to call out Google. Anyway, you probably don't care, but that's never mind. Because the AI was trained on a bunch of information and it can kind of synthesize that information. It's great. It works differently to when you are searching something online, and it's been able to fill in the blanks of things that I haven't been able to find myself, and it means you don't have to look at 10 different web pages to get an answer or to kind of synthesize the information yourself. And it can also do really cool tasks that save your executive functioning. Like, I just used audio to text, and I told it about a road trip that I'm going on, and I said I'm going from this place to this place to this place to this place to this place. We're driving around quite a bit and going to like 12 to 14 different places. I said, how many kilometers would that be? It worked it out for me. It gave me a breakdown of it. And then I said, look, I'm going to drive a car that uses this much petrol per 100 kilometers. And this is what I think the cost of petrol will be. Can you please tell me how much overall that would cost? And it gave me the estimate, and I didn't have to do all the working out myself. It told me all the working out so I could double check it if I wanted to. And I just thought that was super cool. I think it's great, and it's filling in a lot of the blanks, and I can see a lot of uses for it. It can have silly uses as well. I asked last night for it to make up a silly bedtime story for my kids to try and get them to come to bed. And I played around with that a little bit, and my kids thought some of them were boring, some of them were silly. Then they just wanted to play around with it themselves, but we decided to leave it for tomorrow. So we were able to not stay up too late and interfere with our nice new routine playing around with AI. But yeah, I will have more updates about that in future. Another thing that I asked it was how long it would take me to stew apples and make lasagna. And then it gave me an estimate, and I said, okay, but what if I was preparing them at the same time? Like, what if there was some overlap? How long would it take then? And it was able to give me an estimate for that as well. And it suggested how I would do it. Said to do the apples first, then prep the lasagna while the apples were stewing. And yeah, there's just some interesting questions you can ask like that. So the ones I played around with first were Claude AI, because Claude's a little bit more advanced, and I like Claude. Claude is cool. Claude is compassionate and quite respectful. And then I played around with ChatGPT, which has a good free version. The free version of Claude allows 50 messages a day. ChatGPT, I don't know if it has a limit. I've just been messing around on it. It has an app that you can download as well. And some of the limitations are that it can't tell you current events. So you can't just Google things. You can't ask it things that you would otherwise search online, like what are the latest movies, or what is the price of, a pineapple in March 2024. It doesn't know that kind of thing, but it has general knowledge, so it can be useful. And I'll be using more of it, I think, to, like I said, fill in those gaps and do some of the executive functioning tasks for me. It was really cool the other day, actually. Last night, I think I said, gave it all the tasks that I wanted to achieve today and what would be a good order to do them in, and it suggested a really good order of doing things. It said I might want to exercise first thing in the morning, because a lot of people want to do that, and then strip the beds and put the washing on so it could dry during the day, and then go and do the errands, and then have a rest before cooking dinner. And it was basically the order that I would do things, and it had some good reasoning, and I thought that was very handy, and it will be useful for things like that in future. Anyway, time to wrap it up. The media that I'm consuming, I'm still watching Extraordinary. I'm on the second season. I've been watching TV less often because I've been enjoying reading books. I said that in the last episode. Let's see. So last episode I was listening to The Love Wager, and I liked it. I finished it. I was listening to the audiobook of Life in 5 Senses by Gretchen Rubin. I actually really, really love that, and I'd recommend it to anyone. It's about getting in touch with life and being more mindful and appreciative. I loved it. At the end, I was like in awe for life and the possibilities and how to really enrich this experience of being alive. And I decided that I want to listen to that audiobook every year as a reminder and to give me some ideas, and that I'll definitely recommend it to everyone I know. I thought it would be quite different from Gretchen's other books, but it's different while being the same. She manages to explore all these different topics, but they all are done in such a Gretchen way, and it's all about living the best life. And yeah, I really like that. Highly recommend. Last week I got The Other Bridget, which is a novel out from the library, and I read it in 6 days. It's a new release and it's in high demand. I was going to put it on hold, but then it has something like 80 holds or something. So I got it out because I saw it on the shelf there in the express service, and you have to read it in 7 days. And it was like 450 pages, double the thickness of books that I usually read. I wasn't sure I could do it, but I did it, and it was a way to encourage me to have that rest in the afternoons, to read in the evenings, because I had that time pressure. And I'm proud of myself. I returned it today. It's not due until tomorrow. And it was an interesting book, not quite like I usually read, not your typical rom-com book, a lot more about life and quite a few storylines going on at once. It was set in a library and she's got her friends around. It's set in Australia. It's an interesting read, different from what I usually read, and the author apparently calls it life literature. So now I am on to reading Something Wilder by Christina Loren, which I had already read the first chapter on, so I'm trying to get into that one yet. I haven't quite got into the part where it's unputdownable, so hopefully it gets there. That one's set on a ranch in America, so it's kind of a different setting that I usually like, but I'm sure once I get into that story, then I'll be keen to read it lots. But also I'm reading Yesterday Crumb and the Teapot of Chaos, which is a child's book that's about magic, and I enjoyed the first one. I read it after I read Hedge Witch by Skye McKenna, which is my absolute favourite book ever. It's like if Harry Potter was more positive and crossed with Girl Scouts. I absolutely love it. And then we saw Yesterday Crumb around the same time, so I read it after that. I don't love it as much as Hedge Witch, but it's an interesting read. Definitely recommend for kids at least. Just, it's magic and fun. But, there's a bad guy. So I'm kind of reading that at my own pace because it's not as gripping as adult fiction. And that's all the media I'm consuming at the moment, and listening to a few podcasts here and there. In the Happier series, I was listening to Happier Ladies today. I obviously listened to a lot of Gretchen Rubin and her sister Liz Craft. I listened to both their podcasts, and I started listening to Denise Duffield Thomas again for some cool mindset stuff. She's just a cool lady because she's a self-made millionaire in Australia who's a mum of 3, and she's just really unfancy, and she talks about how she's unfancy. She's not fancy, but anyone can get into business if they want. And I just love Denise Duffield Thomas because the other entrepreneur coaches that I follow are all about mindset, which Denise is as well, but they kind of create these mindset blocks in teaching that you need to fix your mindset before you can be successful and before you can do the thing. And they don't realize that they're creating mindset blocks by telling people that that's what they have to do. But Denise says, look, nothing has to change. It's just you making more money, or you becoming a writer, or you becoming an artist, or you just doing the thing you want. That you don't have to embody the perfect version of yourself before you do the thing. You just do the thing, and it's just you doing the thing. So I love Denise Duffield Thomas. Highly recommend if you are an entrepreneur or a wannabe entrepreneur in whatever form. That includes artists as well. So that's that. Letting go this week. I don't know what I'm letting go of. I'm trying to let go, like last week I said, I'm letting go of busy work and stress addiction. And I think I'm actually working towards that with this changing routine and making rest happen at certain times. So that's why I'm creating this podcast. And I really like that I shifted to doing the podcast this way, because I can see the progress and personal growth I'm making and the little changes and the thought process. And yeah, it's really cool. And I'm glad that you can be along for the journey and kind of see how I'm doing it and maybe be inspired to do some things for yourself. Just make little shifts that have big positive outcomes rather than trying to do super big things all at once. Things can happen slowly like a tortoise, and you get there and everything's on the way up. And if there's a dip, you just get right back on the way up again. So my focus this week is keeping this routine for the kids and holding this space for rest. And it is Easter time as I record this, so we're going away for a couple of days and just going to take it easy breezy, do the things that we've got going on and not overly stress about doing too much else or getting too much done. So that's cool. I'm proud of me to be in this space. That's great. Gratitude for this week. I'm so grateful for this evening routine. It feels really good. Really, really good to have that routine and that predictability and not have that stress of when are the kids going to do this, when am I going to get rest, how long is dinner going to take. Just all that uncertainty is not good for the body. So that's that. And thank you for listening, and I will talk to you on the podcast next week. Bye. So you've got neurodiverse kids in your life. You've probably noticed that they don't respond well to traditional parenting techniques or discipline or ways to get them motivated or to comply. Maybe you're tearing your hair out with stress and the same old struggles and fights and arguments every single day. Or perhaps you're feeling completely lost because you've tried absolutely everything and it just doesn't seem to work. These kids do not respond to behavior charts. They don't respond to power being asserted over them. What these kids need is something completely different. And what I'm going to suggest to you is you actually stop trying to change them. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. And you cannot change these children. You cannot control their behavior. But if you change something around them, you change their environment, you change how you act, it will change how they react, it will change how they respond. If you change something, then no longer will you be stuck in this cycle of doing what you've always done and getting what you've always got. And those traditional methods do not work. So stop wasting your time and energy on them. I know you're looking for a solution and you feel like it's just not possible anymore, but let me tell you, I was in the exact same boat, and then I realized what we need is to do something radically different. My approach is to change the environment around them and to change how you interact with them, and that will have the biggest impact. It'll stop you feeling like your head is butting up against a wall, and it will start actually creating change with less effort. I believe in small, easy to implement shifts that create big change. So if you're interested in seeing what I have to offer, head over to marleydarling.com, and I've got a free webinar there for you to check out, and then comprehensive programs that cover everything I've learned in over a decade of parenting neurodiverse kids, and also in being a neurodiverse person myself who's been studying neurodiversity for over 17 years. I'm here to help you. I'm here to give a different approach, and I wholeheartedly believe that we need a radically different approach to support these children, to empower them to live the best lives possible, and to give you a bit of a break as the parent. So head on over to marleydarling.com, where you can find some free resources and maybe check out my comprehensive programs if you're ready to see a massive difference in your life through just some small shifts. See you there.